Imagine this, a nation on the brink, tribes clashing, and a dream of freedom that turned into a nightmare of blood and starvation. That's the Biafran War, Nigeria's darkest hour. And buddy, you're about to dive into the untold story that shook Africa to its core. Stick around, because this isn't just history, it's a rollercoaster of heroism, heartbreak, and hard-won lessons. Let's rewind to the 1960s. Nigeria had just shaken off British colonial rule in 1960, full of promise, right? A massive country, Africa's giant, with over 250 ethnic groups, but the big players were the Hausa Fulani in the north, the Yoruba in the west, and the Igbo in the east. Oil was booming in the east, making folks there feel like they were carrying the nation on their backs. But tension simmered. The north dominated politics, and whispers of inequality grew louder. Then, bam, 1966 hit like a thunderclap. A coup led by mostly Igbo officers toppled the government, killing northern leaders. Chaos erupted. Counter-coups followed, and General Yakubu Gowon took charge, promising unity. But for the Igbo, it felt like a setup. Pogroms swept the north, mobs targeting easterners, slaughtering thousands. Bodies piled up in the streets, and families fled in terror. Over 1 million Igbo poured back east, traumatized, angry. Their leader, Colonel Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, saw no choice. On May 30, 1967, he declared the Republic of Biafra independent. It was a bold move, fueled by pride and pain, but Gowon wasn't having it. To keep Nigeria one is a task that must be done, he declared. War loomed like a storm cloud, and the world watched, wondering if this patchwork nation could hold. The East had brains and oil, but the federal side had numbers and arms. What started as a political spat exploded into Africa's bloodiest conflict since colonialism. Heroes emerged, villains too, but mostly, ordinary people caught in the crossfire. We're talking inventors turning junk into weapons, kids starving in the bush, and a fight that redefined resilience. Hang tight, this is just the beginning. As the sun rose on July 6, 1967, federal troops crossed the Niger River, kicking off what they called a police action. It turned into a brutal slog. Biafra's forces, ragtag but fierce, pushed back hard. Ojukwu's boys captured Nsukka, then Midwestern states, dreaming big. But Gowon rallied, retaking Benin City in a flash. The war swung like a pendulum. Biafrans dug in, using guerrilla tactics, ambushes in the swamps, hit and runs that frustrated the feds. Remember Major Kaduna Nziogo, the cool guy from '66. He died early on, symbolizing lost ideals. Then came the air raids. Nigeria hired Egyptian pilots to bomb markets and hospitals, pure horror. Biafra responded with ingenuity. They built the Ogbunig, homemade rockets that boomed like thunder, scaring the pants off invaders. But supplies dwindled. Ports blockaded, roads cut. Enugu fell in October '67, Biafra's capital shifting to Umuahia, then Owerri. The federal news tightened. Civilians suffered most, families huddled in bunkers, sharing yams and fear. Yet, spirit burned bright. Biafran radio blared anthems, keeping hope alive. Land of the rising sun, their flag promised dawn after darkness. International eyes turned, France snuck in arms, rooting for Biafra's oil. Britain backed Nigeria, fearing balkanization. The Vatican spoke out, but superpowers, USA and USSR both armed the feds, Cold War style. Amid the gunfire, love stories bloomed, soldiers marrying nurses in foxholes. Betrayers too, like saboteurs switching sides for cash. By '68, the war had claimed hundreds of thousands, but the worst was coming, a famine that would scar the world. Kids with bloated bellies, eyes hollow as ghosts. How did it get this bad? Blockade starved the East, turning fertile land barren. 8 planes dodged MiGs at night, heroes like Carl Gustav von Rosen flying Marcy missions. This wasn't just war, it was survival against extinction. The Biafrans fought like lions, but the tide was turning. Federal advances sliced Biafra in half, isolating pockets of resistance. Ojukwu vowed no surrender, but cracks showed. Whispers of peace talks in Addis Ababa, but egos clashed harder than armies. Now, picture this, millions trapped in a shrinking enclave, food scarcer than hope. The blockade beat deep, Nigeria's navy sealed the coast, federal troops ringed the land. Crops failed, markets empty. Kwashiorkor ravaged kids, swollen tummies, stick-thin limbs, a sight that haunts history books. Biafra babies, the media called them, splashing photos worldwide. Starvation killed more than bullets, body, up to 2 million dead, mostly civilians. It was genocide by hunger, some said. Ojukwu appealed globally, help us. Red Cross planes braved anti-aircraft fire, dropping sacks of cornmeal under moonlit skies. But politics muddied mercy. Nigeria accused aid of prolonging the war, bombing relief flights. Heroes like Irish priest Father Kevin Doheny smuggled food on bush paths, dodging patrols. Biafrans ate lizards, roots, and anything to stay alive. Inventions saved some. Local scientists brewed protein from cassava, rigged refineries for fuel. But morale cracked. Desertions rose, and families buried babies in shallow graves. The federal side pushed relentlessly. Operation Tailwind in '69 crushed resistance in the south. Owerri flip-flopped hands, blood soaking its streets. Gowon's "No victor, no vanquished" slogan rang hollow amid atrocities. Massacres like Asaba, where thousands of Igbo men were lined up and shot, chilling echoes of pogroms. Biafran propaganda fought back, radio voices like Okakondem rallying the weary. "We are Biafra," they chanted. But isolation hurt. Allies waned, Israel sent some arms, but superpowers stayed federal. Tanzania recognized Biafra, a moral win, but not enough. By late '69, the end neared. Uli airstrip, Biafra's lifeline, buzzed with daredevil pilots landing in blackout conditions. One crash killed hundreds waiting for food. The human cost, unimaginable. Widows roamed, orphans begged. Yet, in the despair, seeds of rebirth stirred, communities shared last crumbs, forging unbreakable bonds. This famine wasn't just a tragedy, it birthed global humanitarianism, inspiring Live Aid decades later. As federal tanks roared closer, Ojukwu faced reality. Exile beckoned, but what about his people? The darkest hour was fading, but at what price? Let's talk the big players pulling strings from afar. Britain, Nigeria's old colonial boss, threw weight behind Gowon, arms, advisors, the works. Why? Oil interest, mate. Shell BP wanted stability, and a united Nigeria meant steady profits. Harold Wilson's government spun it as preventing chaos, but critics called it neocolonialism. France, ever the rival, backed Biafra covertly. De Gaulle saw a chance to poke Britain, shipping guns via Gabon and the Ivory Coast. Mercenaries flocked, white soldiers of fortune like Rolf Steiner, training Biafran commandos in the jungle. Wild tales of ex-Nazis and Rhodesians fighting for pay. The UN, mostly silent, calling it internal affairs. But Pope Paul VI cried out, visiting Africa to plead for peace. Superpowers played both sides. Soviets sold MiGs to Nigeria, Americans provided humanitarian aid but no arms, officially. Nixon's administration sympathized with Biafra, but realpolitik won. Ireland, hit hard by famine images echoing their potato blight, raised millions. Rock stars and activists mobilized, John Lennon returned his MB in protest. Media turned the tide, Mac press agency beamed out starving child photos, coining genocide claims. It worked, Public outrage forced aid surges. But scandals too, some relief money vanished into war chests. Biafra's PR genius, like forging stamps and currency, kept the dream alive. Yet, isolation doomed them. No major power fully committed. Talks in Kampala, Aburi flopped, accords ignored, trust shattered. Gowon offered amnesty, but Ojukwu demanded sovereignty. As 69 dragged, federal gains mounted. Biafran airstrikes, using baby jets, hit Abuja, bold but futile. The world watched a David versus Goliath, but Goliath had endless slings. Humanitarian flights became battlegrounds. Nigeria shot down a Red Cross plane, killing the crew. Outrage peaked, but the war ground on. In the end, international meddling prolonged suffering, teaching harsh lessons on geopolitics. Africa's borders, drawn by colonials, proved powder kegs. Biafra's fight inspired secessionists worldwide, from Eritrea to South Sudan. But for Nigeria, it was a wake-up call, unity or bust. The breaking point came in January 1970. Federal forces stormed Owerri, then Umuahia, Biafra's heart ripped out. Ojukwu saw the writing on the wall. On January 11th, he fled to the Ivory Coast, handing reins to Philip Effiong. "I'm going to seek peace," he said, but it felt like abandonment to some. Effiong surrendered days later in Lagos, broadcast live. The Republic of Biafra ceases to exist. Cheers in the north, sobs in the east. Gowon declared no reprisals, brothers once more. But reality bit. Troops looted, reprisals whispered. Yet, remarkably, mass revenge didn't erupt. Gowon's reconciliation policy shone, Igbo reintegrated, no trials for secessionists. The war ended after 30 months, costing 1 to 3 million lives, mostly from hunger. Bodies buried in mass graves, villages razed. Nigeria stood, but scarred. Oil flowed again, fueling a boom. But ethnic tensions lingered, birthing future coups. Biafra's flag. Banned, but not forgotten. Ojukwu returned in '82, pardoned, and entered politics. Effiong, too, was hailed as wise. The end brought relief, but questions: was secession justified? Did famine tactics cross lines? Historians debate, some call it civil war, others genocide. Biafrans rebuilt fast, and Igbo entrepreneurship is exploding. Lagos buzzed anew, Nigeria hosting Festac 77, celebrating African culture. But shadows remain, groups like IPOB revive Biafran dreams today. The war birthed Nollywood, storytelling as therapy. Veterans share tales around fires, lessons in unity. Africa's giant learned fragility, diversity as strength, not weakness. Gowon retired revered, Ojukwu died a hero in 2011. The surrender wasn't defeat, it was survival's pivot. Fast forward, Nigeria rose from the ashes, but the war's echo shapes everything. Post-1970, Gowon's 3 rupees, reconciliation, rehabilitation, reconstruction, pumped cash into the East. Roads rebuilt, schools reopened. Igbo folks, resilient as ever, dominated trade, turning Lagos markets into empires. But trust fractured. The 1979 Constitution aimed to prevent dominance, rotating power. Yet, coups rolled, Buhari, Babangida, Abacha, was instability bred dictators. Oil curse hit, boom-bust cycles, corruption siphoning billions. The Niger Delta fled, militants echoing Biafra's resource gripes. Today, Boko Haram, herdsmen clashes, wars, unhealed wounds. Absolutely. But positives shine, Nigerian unity forged in fire, a federation enduring. Culturally, the war inspired giants, Chinua Achebe's "There Was a Country" bare souls. Music. Fela Kuti's Afrobeat railed against military ghosts. Globally, Biafra pioneered famine awareness, birthing NGOs like Doctors Without Borders. Modern Nigeria. Youth-led, tech-savvy, NSAS protests channel that defiant spirit. Biafran flags wave at rallies, symbols of injustice. Ojoku's dream evolved into calls for restructuring, equity. Nigeria's population explodes, economy Africa's largest, but inequality festers. The war taught, ignore grievances, risk explosion. Buddy, this story isn't dusty history, it's a mirror for today. From division to tentative unity, Nigeria's rebirth proves Africa's grit. Heroes like the market women who smuggled food, or inventors crafting arms from scrap, they embody hope. As we wrap, remember, wars end, but stories endure, urging us toward better tomorrows. If this hit you, smash like, subscribe for more untold African epics. What's your take? Could Biafra have won? Drop comments below. Peace out. Phew, that was intense, right? But let's circle back to the legacy that keeps evolving. 50+ years on, memorials.the-east, museums in Umuahia, gravesites whispering tales. Books, films like Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie bring it home, humanizing the horror. Education shifted, history curricula now teach the war, fostering understanding across tribes. Economically, the Igbo apprenticeship system, mentoring youth in business, traces to post-war survival. Nigeria's military professionalized, but coup scars led to democracy in '99. Challenges persist, secessionist murmurs, economic divides. Yet, intermarriages boom, blending Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo bloodlines. Sports unite, Super Eagles wins heal old rifts. Globally, Biafra's lesson. Humanitarian interventions double-edged, aid saves, but prolongs pain. UN reforms followed, emphasizing prevention. For Nigerians abroad, the diaspora thrives, remitting billions, proud of roots. Ojoku's statue stands tall, a reminder of audacity. Gawan, at 90-something, reflect on unity's cost. This war wasn't just Nigeria's, it's Africa's cautionary tale against ethnic strife. Rebirth means acknowledging pain, building bridges. Today, with tech connecting youth, Nigeria innovates, fintech like Paystack, music conquering Grammys. The darkest hour birthed a brighter dawn, proving resilience trumps all. Thanks for joining this journey, let's keep uncovering Africa's hidden gems together.